So this video is going to be a really quick introduction on how to transform variables in SPSS. Before we get to the transforming, the very first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to look at the variable that we're working with. So I'm going to drop some pretty quick frequency tables by going to analyze descriptive statistics frequencies. My variable that I'm going to use is already popped into the box, so I'm going to use interest attention, and I'm just going to click OK. So when we get this output, we see that this variable, which is in the American National Election Study 2012 dataset, this variable represents a question that was asked to survey respondents. How often does R, respondent, pay attention to politics and elections? So 1 is always, 2 is most of the time, 3 is about half the time, 4 some of the time, and 5 is never. Now, you would transform this variable if for whatever reason you wanted to collapse these categories that you had. So for example, if I didn't want a variable that scaled from 1 to 5, I can use SPSS to change or transform this variable to 1 to 2, whereas 1 would represent all the respondents that answered always, most of the time, about half the time, some of the time, and 2 would respond never. So instead of having 5 categories, it's going to be 2 categories where it's I pay attention or I don't pay attention. So how do we do this? The command option is found in transform. There are 2 ways to do this. You can recode into the same variable or you can recode into different variables. I always tell students you should probably recode into different variables because recoding into the same variable replaces the existing variable in SPSS. So if you make a mistake or if you want to go back, the program won't let you do that. So transform recode into different variables. Now this box will pop up. It's essentially asking what's your old variable that you're going to transform. So I'm going to find interest attention on the left, put this in my main box. So you see interest attention is question mark. It's asking for a name. So I'm going to name this variable anything pertinent. So I'm going to name it new interest 2. You can name it any alphanumeric character, no special characters, no spaces. If you really want, you can enter the label right away. So binary variable representing interest in politics. I'm going to click change. You see right away the question mark shifted to the name of this new variable. So interest attention will now become new interest 2. Next, we're going to tell SPSS for the old values that we had, what are those new values going to be? So click old and new values, and this new dialog box will pop up. Now referring back to the categories in the background here, I'm going to change anything from 1 to 4 in my old variable, and that's now going to be coded as a 1. So you're telling SPSS anything that was previously 1, 2, 3, or 4, I'm now going to transform this into just 1. So I click add. Separately, we can do this for single values. So I'm going to tell SPSS second that anything that was coded as a 5 will now be a 2. So I've taken care of my 5 categories, and now they're only going to come up as 2 different categories. Once you finish your coding decisions, you click continue. It'll take you back into the main dialog box, and you'll click OK. The output will tell you that it's executed this. If you go back to your spreadsheet and you scroll all the way to the end, you'll see this new variable, which is 1s and 2s. One last thing to do before you proceed with any additional testing is to click onto variable view, go all the way to the end, and make sure if you need to, add some of the values that you just created to variable view. So 1s, if you remember, interested in politics, and 2s were never interested in politics.